Join Hans and Scotty Thursday. They're going to be at the Cedar Hills Golf Course for the Dyslexia Center of Utah Charity Golf Tournament. DJ, PK, and Steve Cleveland joining us now. Steve, good morning.
Good morning.
Steve, man, you coached in the right era. You got out at the right time. This NIL stuff, your head would just explode, wouldn't it? Like you had enough problems to deal with. This just seems like one more problem, but it's not because it's a problem with every player, and you spend a lot of energy on the players you don't get in the NIL. There's a whole budget, and then you've got jealousy in the locker room when guys find out how much money they're making. Once upon a time, just a few years ago, I think the number was you need $2.5 million to put an NCAA team together, and now I've heard 3 or 4. But I'm thinking the price tag must be going up because there's a report this morning that Great Osobor is getting $2 million to go to Washington with Danny Sprinkle. Man, there's no discount for knowing Danny and playing for 2 schools in 3 years with him. $2 million. That is top dollar in the college basketball world right now, isn't it? Or have you heard something different?
I'm wondering what Danny makes a year. He probably makes 2 or 3. I'm not sure. You know what his salary is?
I'll look while you talk. I'll search and see if I can find that.
No, it is unbelievable what's happening and how you control it. And you can just, everybody kind of knows what everybody's getting to. Everything seems to be very transparent, very public. And you need an assistant just full time to deal with that and deal with the mindset of these young people. And, and guys are playing. And especially as you get towards the ends of seasons, and you start seeing, the team played really well, or maybe they struggled a little bit. And so you're constantly, day in and day out, you're recruiting. You're always recruiting. It doesn't matter if you're at the beginning of the year or the end of the year. But when you throw in millions of dollars that are being thrown out there for collegiate players, it could be really destructive to a team. And I'm quite certain, I don't know that these things are public record, not sure about that. But we just seem to be able to hear about these things through the the different media outlets that kids are getting $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million. I can't even imagine controlling that and dealing with that. Though I'm sure every staff will have someone that deals just with NIL. There'll be an administrator that probably is dealing with NIL from the athletic department. I'm sure that it's just not going to be in the hands of 19 and 20-year-old kids and their parents or their support group, whoever it might be. So, yeah, it's crazy numbers. Good on Danny Sprinkle to get Osobor back. He's a really, really good player. And he was listed in a number of teams that he could potentially go to. So is he a junior this year, Osobor? Will he be a junior?
No, this will be his 4th. He played 2 years at Montana State and then the 1 year at Utah State.
So he's got a year left.
And and Danny Sprinkle, 6-year contract that starts at $3.2 million and finishes at $4.2 million. It's worth $22 million all told. So Sprinkle will still be making more, but Osobor really closed the gap there.
Exactly. I'm thinking Osobor making more than all the assistants. So there you go. But it is a crazy world.
The thing that I wonder about is, it sounds good. He's a nice player. I saw him play in person many times, no doubt about it. But you wonder, the folks doing that over there in Washington, if they finish 10th in the Big Ten, they're going to wonder, well, what did I do that for? That's a lot of cash.
Yeah, well, obviously they have the resources, and with Washington, is Washington going? Where exactly is Washington going to be? Are they in the
Big Ten?
Big Ten?
Yeah,
Big Ten. That's what I thought.
And 10th place doesn't sound good, but the league's going to have 18 teams, and they don't do divisions. So 10th place is if they just end up in the middle, which is where Indiana, Iowa, and Michigan State ended up in the middle. They were all 10-10 last year. To PK's point, how good do you feel about that?
Well, it seems like it's out of control. It may be being handled quite well, and things are going forward. But you just wonder moving forward in the next year or 2 or 3 if there isn't some kind of correction being made. I just don't know. I mean, otherwise, if it's $2 million today, a year from now or 2 years from now, it might be $4 or $5 million. and now we're talking about NBA money, and so it's just really hard for me to wrap my arms around that. I understand that what NIL is and that they do need to take care of young people, but there has to be some controls there, and the idea that we're giving a player $2 million or more just seems insane to me. But again, I'm kind of old school, as you all are, and if this is the direction we're going and you've got people controlling it, then good on them. But I just potentially see so many issues here that are not great for the game. Not really. I mean, it's wonderful for these young people to come in and get that kind of money, but I'm not. I'm not sure Osabar gets drafted. I mean, right. He's a really good.
Right.
He may not. He's probably playing. He may go to Europe and play and have to take a pay cut.
Not maybe. I think you've just laid out probably. But the interesting thing is, for people who think Washington's up in the night and what are they doing, there's plenty of reporting here, and there's a story from Jeff Goodman, who's covered college basketball forever, for decades, and he says it was Texas Tech, Louisville, and Washington at the end. So did somebody bid $2 million and somebody else was at 1.6 and somebody else was at 1.8? At Texas Tech, that's a Big 12 school, so that's what Utah and BYU are up against. You can see what neighborhood Texas Tech is trying to spend in. Yes,
and as will be, the Big 12. I mean, listen, if they're doing this at a program that is, in 10th place, and Washington hasn't been very good for a while, and you start thinking about what's happening and the impact it has on other leagues. At some point in time, there has to be some kind of administrative control, and I'm not even sure the NCAA exists in terms of football and basketball 3 or 4 years from now. There may be a whole different organization, whatever that looks like, whatever it costs. So I think change is a coming, and it's not one of those things that we can say, well, this is how it's going to be. I don't think anybody knows how it's going to be 5 years from now. I do believe in a 64-team super conference, and I could see that seems to make sense, and they control it themselves, and maybe they have nothing to do with the NCAA. I don't know, but there is change, and it's hard to understand, even think about what's happening. But good on Danny Sprinkle, good on Osabar. It's happening. It's changing their lives, and hopefully, they can put it together and win some games and be competitive again, because Washington hasn't been competitive for a while.
Right, yeah. No doubt about it. The changing world is just going crazy, but at the same time, Kyle Whittingham does an ad. He says that NIL is not the future. It's now. And if you don't jump in and embrace it and run with it, you're going to be left behind. Kyle made a statement, I think, over last football season. He believes there'll come a time in the short order where the top 25, the ranking that comes out each week, it will correspond to the top 25 NIL money available. And that's how strong he believes this thing is going.
Well, and he would know. He's at the heart of it, and he's talking to all the right people, and that doesn't surprise me at all based upon what's just happening in the last 24 months. But it's jumped to a whole nother level. And you know what? Kyle's right. You're in a system, you need to embrace it, and if you want to continue to compete, you got to do that. I can't even imagine how you manage a culture of a team where guys are getting $2 million and guys are getting $50,000, and where they are in the pecking order, and the jealousy that can come from that, the disdain that comes from that. I mean, I'm not around it, and I'm not inside it, but I've been around people enough to know that guys come into the office midway through the year, they're on a $50,000 a year, NIL, and they say, hey, listen, we've got about 10 games left. Where are we at? I mean, those conversations are probably going to happen. And it was like, you selfish, da-da-da-da-da. No, that's the reality. That's the reality. I'm not sure how that works. And you better have, administratively, you better have people on top of that. And you better be communicating that. Everybody's got to be really transparent. This is what it is. I mean, I could see where all these numbers, you're talking about numbers that are all transparent. And now we see where it is, and you see how that impacts recruiting, and guys can take a look at it and we've talked about this before, but we all know now that you can go to 4 different schools in 4 different years and work that NIL deal and work the opportunity to play at different levels. Wow, you need to add 2 or 3 more staff players just to deal with that.
I guess the coaches have to give the message like everybody wants NIL, and that money is going to go to winners, and it's going to go to players who get better. So you've got to be in the gym putting up shots. If you're a lazy defender, if you don't run the floor, like that video's out there for everybody. I mean, great Osibor. The best thing you can say about him is for a big man, he was tremendous at running the floor. He was so like, hey, if you want it, you got to go get it. And every time he switched ends, every time he got out in front on a break, it was an easy dunk. It was impressive. It lit up the crowd, and it makes coaches say, I got to have that guy at Louisville and Texas Tech and Washington. So I guess and the other thing as a coach is you better not spend your entire NIL budget, so you have to put out a fire at the middle of the year. Don't let the players know you have it because they'll come for it. But you better be sitting on a little cash.
Yeah, no question about that. And you're right. I just wonder how it's going to impact all the intangibles in the game that we always talk about, in terms of the unity that you need to be intentional about what we're going to do and how we're going to, be a group that's together and, all of those intangible things. Do they become less important now, and it's more about numbers and it's more about the next step and next level? I mean, I don't know a college coach that I've been around that, doesn't have the heart in the right place, and they're just having to make some adjustments because keeping teams together and all of a sudden you start losing games and it impacts a lot of things. And all of a sudden you're always thinking about recruiting the whole year. Forget about NIL. Your staff still talks about it. Where are we at with the guy here, and where are we going to go here, and I'm going to look for a transfer. And now, half the recruiting goes to transfers. I mean, there was over 2,000 young people in the portal, maybe more than that. You start thinking about those numbers and moving those numbers and how they're so transparent about all of this that it can impact the culture of a team. There could be jealousy. There could be players not upset, not just with playing. It used to be they'd moan and complain about playing time. Now it's moaning and complaining. I don't care if I'm playing as long as I get my $2 million. But you're dealing with different things now when it comes to the organization. And listen, most of the Division I coaches I know, I have a great deal of confidence in them being able to handle it. Okay, they'll find out what the rules are. They'll work through it. But in terms of my experience of 35 years of coaching and dealing with coaches at every level, guys, you don't get into this business because you don't have a really good heart and you love guys and you're competitive and you want to build something special. You're just adding a really, really big piece that could be a real positive thing for everybody, but could be something that could be destructive to a team.
Jazz supposed to have the 8th best picks, lottery, whatever you want to call it, or worst, I don't know. But they dropped down to 10. To me, I mean, it's a little bit of a blow, but you still got to roll up your sleeves and get to work here. I don't see where it changes anything.
No, it's not going to change anything. And I know that I haven't talked to Danny, and I haven't really talked to a lot of people about the draft, but I just kind of watch it for myself and the makeup of this team going forward, and what kind of pieces do they need? Are they really in a position where they could, be in the top 10? Yes, there's absolutely that goal should be there every year, and they need to make the changes. They need to find the right guys to who they'll trade and what'll happen. We'll find more about that, and I'm not really on the end of that right now, but I just. They've got to be better. They've got to. This is such a great market, and it's a great community, and I know that Ryan Smith and Danny and everybody that's involved, they're really good at what they do, but it's time for them to take a step. And if that's through trades, great. I just don't see any draft picks coming in and having an impact in this program right now. I mean, unless they got lucky and got a really high draft pick, but they're going to have to make some trades and make this a better team. And and make some of those changes. And I'm sure they're talking about it every day there, but I just think in this community, it's an automatic that we're, in the top 10 every year, and then work our way to being really relevant in the game. And I know that's what they want, and I know that's what the community wants and the fans want. And so hopefully they can put that together where the Jazz can be competitive again and get better and, be in the playoffs year in and year out.
It'd be great if some big trade presents itself and they can work a deal. But what if it comes down to they have to overpay to make the deal, or they have to decide we're going to be bad for another year and the next draft is supposed to be loaded so we can get somebody there? I mean, you live in the community now, and I'm sure everybody wants to talk basketball with you. Do Jazz fans have the stomach for it? Does Ryan Smith have the stomach for another lousy year?
I am not going to speak for Ryan Smith or for Danny Ainge, but it can't be great. It can't be a great feeling, and especially when the Jazz have a history in this conference, in this league, and there's an expectation. So for the fans, this is not going to be a happy day for the fans if they decide to wait another year. If that's what they feel is needed, and they look at the next year's draft and feel like, hey, we can get better and we can do this and that, then from that perspective, I have a great respect for Danny and Ryan and everything that everybody around there that they're doing. But that'll be hard for the fans to kind of have to watch and continue. And it's not to say that they couldn't stay pat and doing what they're doing, and they'll get better, and they weren't that far away anyway from being in the top 10. But, we're kind of – I think you start to settle for, 6 through 10, 7 through 10. We start settling for that, and that would be a great jump. I mean, where they were last – if they could get into the playoffs somewhere, in the 7 to 10 spot, that would show a sign of improvement. Guys have gotten better. Younger players have gotten better. I think everybody can live with that, but I think just for the confidence of the community, for them to make some changes and do a few little things, I think that's what everybody's hopeful about. Whether that's this year or next year, I think if I'm in their shoes, I'm thinking to myself, let's do what's best long term, no matter how much everybody's upset about the fact that we didn't do this and we didn't do that. Just stay with us here, And this fan base is so loyal. I can't imagine people not coming to games. It's just such a great product. Whether the Jazz are playing well or just the teams that come in here, it seems like the sport is so healthy. So, Danny Ainge and Ryan Smith have to make the decisions they feel in their gut that are right, and then you go forward with it. I know what the fan base wants. They want changes now, and they want to be competitive now, but it may not be possible. And we'll see what happens, and maybe there is a super trade there that the Jazz can get better. I'm not familiar with and I read up on the Jazz quite a bit and stay in tune with it. I'm not sure who that person is yet, but if they can get it done, great. If not, then like you said, you got to have a draft that's really solid, and you can get better through the draft, and getting better through development. And guys need to get better and be more consistent with what's going on. So, and we're all hopeful that it'll be better, and I'm hopeful that they'll make the decisions that are right for the program long term, not just as necessarily. We can't focus on this thing as short term and put a Band-Aid on it. And hey, we're going to win a few more games. That's not going to do anybody any good. I think we'd like to see a program with long-term success, and the Jazz have had that for years in this community, and that's what they expect, and that's what every fan. They're paying big money to go to these games. They want a good product, and they've got great coaching and great administration. I mean, I've been around those guys. I've watched them. I've kind of seen them move around as you have. Their hearts are right. They've got so much experience that I trust them. And my gut feeling is if we got to wait another year before we can really, really make some significant change, so be it. Let's work with the guys we have. Let's help develop them, get better, work on weaknesses, make sure this team is absolutely together. And I think everybody is patient enough to wait another year, especially considering the last 2 or 3 years.
I don't believe in statement games in the NBA regular season, but I think you can have them in the playoff. And I think Denver had a statement game on Game 3. And when they won so convincingly, and I think they went into Game 4 thinking we're going to win. And I think that right now, even though the series is 2-2, I think they've got all the momentum. And I couldn't have been more impressed when they just said, hey, boys, hold on a second. We're the team to beat, and nothing has changed here. We slumped for a couple games, but this thing is ours.
Well, I've watched these games, and there's no question that there's been a momentum shift. And Denver was just hitting it on all cylinders and playing so well. And, he hit 27, 7, and 6 out of Gordon, who, is a guy that usually is in the teens. Murray continues. He seems to be getting healthier and feeling better. But at the middle of it all is Jokic, and, he does what he does. It's hard to beat that team. I think I was enamored. I was excited to see someone that could maybe compete with them in Minnesota. They made both teams. Denver obviously made some adjustments, and Minnesota now has to make some adjustments. I think they're going to have to make a decision, and they're probably not going to go away from playing big. Naz Reid was a huge factor in those first 2 games, and you got a big out there that's competing, and Rudy doesn't play. Rudy's never going to bring what Naz Reid can bring on the perimeter, but they've won enough and they've been successful enough to say, hey, Towns and Gobert together it's a good thing for us. It has been the whole season. But if I'm a Minnesota fan, I'm saying let's look at some different lineups and do some different things. Conley continues to amaze me what he's doing at his age and the leadership that he brings. And I'm not vested in either one of these teams, but I'm just hoping that Minnesota will come out and make some adjustments. And I know they're playing at home, but they beat them at home. That's where they won their game. So I'm sure Minnesota's not just going to quietly go away. But you're right, Denver has just been special, and they've taken it up a notch, and they've had that experience. And when you've got the best player, in the league in Jokic, it's unlimited opportunities to maybe win another championship this year. So there's no question they were there. And Jokic had 16 in the fourth quarter alone. That what was a real killer in that game is Murray hitting that half-court buzzer beater. It's like just a slap in the face as we go into halftime. So, in my heart, there's a lot of Minnesota in me wanting to pull for these guys and see them pull off the upset. But what I saw yesterday, it doesn't appear that that's going to change.
I've praised Mike Conley enough that PK gave him a nickname. Tell him, PK.
Well, he just brings such a calm feeling that I called him Mike Calmly, which I thought was funny. What the heck?
Oh, I do like that. I like that.
But he did it to mock me for praising Conley, so I didn't like it. He's not mocking you, so you're fine with it.
Yeah, there was a book I read many years ago about Bill Bradley, but it was called The Sense of Where You Are. It was my favorite book growing up when I was playing basketball, and that's when I see Mike Conley. I feel like there's a calmness about him, that he has a sense of where he is. He doesn't try to overdo it, and it was a great read for me. I've read it a few times, and it really helped me have a perspective as a coach and as a player. And not that it's anything real deep, and that you don't have to be a basketball fan to enjoy the book, but that's what I think of when I think of Mike Conley. I think of a guy that he has a sense of where he is. There's a calmness about him. He's a leader there. The guys respect and love him. They got great chemistry. And 2 weeks ago we're talking about Edwards, and just going crazy. He was 44 last night. Naz Reid was 11-4. They need if Naz is going to come in and play. I shouldn't say this, but there's a part of me as good as Gobert has been, and he is amazing for him. You just gotta have moments where Gobert steps away, like when he didn't play, and it gives him more. And there's another shooter on the floor. They can trap and they can get after guys. I understand what Gobert brings in terms of rebounding and having a presence at the rim. So we'll see how it plays out. But I'd like to see him go small at times too, and maybe match up and really open the floor. With Gobert in there, that no one really has to be there and have to worry about him shooting from the perimeter or taking it on the floor. So maybe playing a little bit of small ball for Minnesota might turn it back around for him.
Steve, thanks as always. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you again next week.
All right, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, thanks, Steve. DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. The PGA Championship is this week. It is time for Uinta Golf Major Giveaway. Be caller 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE, and you will be assigned a golfer in the PGA Championship field this week. If your assigned golfer wins, you'll win the same brand of driver that they play. It's brought to you by Uinta Golf, simply the best golf stores in Utah since 1971.